is Lori Thompson, and I'm a physical therapist in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I work at the Hureska Clinic. My colleagues and I put out a shoe list every year. We've been doing it for close to 20 years. We provide shoes depending on your updates, and we will take shoes on and off our shoe list. We provide the shoe list not only for our patients here in Lincoln, Nebraska, but I am representing thousands of healthcare providers across the country and internationally that integrate the science of postural restoration. We represent all of them. They rely on our shoe list every year because they know the power that shoes have on their work in postural restoration. I'm going to take you through in the back of this handout. We look for basic qualities of what we look for in a good shoe and some basic things that we look for in a shoe that isn't so good that can influence the power of shoes. Not only do these shoes affect our patients and their rehab process of going through a postural restoration program, but you know what? Your shoes have the power to prevent injury. You guys, your brain's ability to feel the ground underneath the shoe is going to be a ripple effect. It's going to affect the ankle joint, the knee joint, the hip joint, and most importantly, the pelvis. The pelvis is kind of like a foundation of the house. The ability for this pelvis to be upright, you can see how it can influence the spine, that can influence a back and a neck, and this pelvis affects an SI joint. You have back muscles that attach here, abdominal muscles that attach here, your glute muscles, your hip joint. Your hip joint comes down and affects your knee joint. Your knee joint is going to be affected by your foot and ankle. That is the power that your shoes have on my program and can influence all of the runners that you are providing shoes for when they go out to run to prevent injury. We look at running shoes because the mechanics to run and walk are the same. It is important for this pelvis to be able to move back and forth during the gait cycle. We don't want this pelvis, most commonly, to come forward on both sides, and the most common and normal is for the left side to come forward and the right side to come back based on normal science from the Postural Restoration Institute. Our goal is to keep this pelvis upright and to keep this pelvis moving from side to side. Your shoes have that kind of power on my program. What I would like to do is to take an old shoe. These are some of our favorite shoes from the past, from New Balance, from Asics, from Brooks, that have really been influential over the past decades that have been helpful with outcomes with our patients. Let me go through some of our favorites that we've had in the past. The Asics Foundation was a power horse. I ran the Chicago Marathon in these shoes back in the early 2000s. These shoes not only have a narrow heel counter, but you have a heel counter that doesn't collapse in, and it also has a heel counter that's symmetrical on the inside and the outside of the shoe, and there's not a lot of give in the sole of the shoe. Think about this as a powerhouse for the foot and ankle. We need this to be steady and stable in order to allow the middle part of the foot to roll, the middle part of the foot to be able to roll out at heel strike, to be able to roll in at mid stance, and then to be able to push off at toe off to get power from the glutes. The heel counter is so important. You know what? There was a trend when you guys had a lot of lateral heel give on these shoes. You guys haven't been doing that for probably the last decade. Thank you. Your heel counters have been symmetrical. Thank you. And your heel counters haven't collapsed in like they used to in the past. And that's been very influential. The other thing that is really helpful is when your shoes have a narrow heel counter, if you look at this Asics shoe. This allows the brain to sense a heel hug around the calcaneal bone or the heel bone of the shoe. And that's going to be powerful to get hip extension at toe off and to get power from glute muscles. A wider shoe, this is okay for some people, but a more narrow heel counter will be really powerful to help out with ankle instability and to get power from glute muscles. Another trend that we like that you guys have been really good about in the past is we like forefoots that bend easily at the toe box. This is the normal bend of the foot. If this doesn't bend at the normal bend of the foot and they bend in half, that can cause plantar fasciitis and heel bursitis. On the opposite end of the spectrum, if you have a toe box that doesn't bend easily and is very stiff, guess what? Your runners and walkers are going to overwork their hip flexors and their back extensors in order to clear their foot on the ground. HOKA, you guys are a great example of a really stiff toe box. This doesn't bend very easily. So when I get my foot back behind me, when I get to toe up, if that doesn't bend easily, I'm going to have to overwork again my hip flexors and back extensors in order for my toe not to drag or hit on the ground. The only time that a stiffness in a toe box is helpful is probably less than 1% of the population. These are individuals that might have a limitation in their range of motion at their first big toe joint, or called the first ray. If there's a limitation of that mobility in that toe joint from a bunion, arthritis, or from a fusion from a foot surgery, then these shoes are perfect for those individuals. But again, that's less than 1% of the population, but we're making shoes that are not helping 99% of the population when these toe boxes are that stiff. Another quality that we looked for in shoes in the past, Brooks, you guys in this Brooks Dyad shoe, you guys had a great liner of a shoe that this had this rubber input allowed for the foot to be able to work with that shoe really well. And the ability for the brain to feel the ground underneath the shoe is so important. Because if the brain can feel the ground underneath the shoe, that goes to 70% of the brain that affects posture and movement. When the brain cannot feel the ground underneath the shoe, that's going to affect biomechanics all the way up to the hip and the pelvis, and it's going to affect movement of that runner or that walker. New Balance, this was the first version of the New Balance 1080. This was a great neurosensory shoe for a lot of our patients because, like the Brooks Dyad liner, there was a little bit of give. Not too much cushion, but a little bit of give in the design of this shoe that allowed for the foot to work with the shoe, and it helped a lot of our patients to be able to feel the ground underneath the shoe. This was a power horse for us back when this shoe first came out. Another shoe that we really liked was the Asics Cumulus because of how narrow this heel counter was that I described before. There's so many people that have high ankle sprains and ankle laxity from ankle sprains, and this really affects the narrowness of the heel counter to provide stability at that heel for the foot to be able to roll out and to be able to roll in. So these are some qualities that we look for in a shoe. And we still continue to look for them in your newer, more updated shoes, but we're a little bit on the struggle bus with the current trends across all of the shoe companies. I don't want to pick on any one shoe, but we are on a trend right now that you guys have made the upper part of the shoes all one material. Back in the day, if you look at all four of these examples, you had heavy-duty material on here, multi-layers of material. If you look at all of these shoes, what this does, you guys, is it allows for the foot to work with the shoe. If you have one layer of material here, the foot slides all over the shoe, and it makes it hard for the foot to work with that shoe and to go through heel strike, mid-stance, and the toe-walk phases of gait or the walking cycle. I know that runners are demanding lighter weight shoes, but I would try to make it lighter weight material and not just one material in the upper part of the shoe, again, for the foot to work with the shoe or to be able to work with an orthotic inside of your shoe. Another trend that you guys are doing that is very challenging to work with is all shoes are over cushioned. I don't mind support underneath the sole of the shoe, but the thickness of the sole for the brain's ability to feel the ground underneath the shoe, this is way too thick. Again, neurologically, the brain's got to feel the ground underneath the shoe. The more thickness you're adding and making these shoes look more like platforms are affecting posture and movement with the brain's neurological effect to feel the ground again underneath that shoe. All shoes across the board are way too over-cushioned. Another trend that's happening right now, this is on cloud. I can find them in all examples across the board with Saucony, New Balance, and Brooks shoes. You guys are allowing the heels to come up. I don't mind if the toes come up here to allow for more of a rocker type of shoe, but having a heel that comes up back here and scoops up here, you guys, you're affecting the big, powerful heel counter. And this heel counter influences the ability for me to keep my pelvis upright when I'm walking or running. So when you allow this heel to scoop up, you're going to cause this pelvis to fall forward. And when this pelvis falls forward, it can't alternate. It's going to be locked into position, and that's going to create hip pain, side pain, low back pain, and knee pain. You do not want heels that come up like a rocking horse. You want these heels to stay flat like what you guys used to do back in the day. Heels are flat. This provides a great foundation in order for people to move forward with correct biomechanics. I want to let you know that we need your help. We are giving our plea as healthcare providers across the country and internationally. I'm not the only one that is looking at our shoe list and the power of your shoes they have on the outcomes of our patients. I can give my patients the correct exercises to assist in their rehab program, but the minute they walk out of my clinic and they're walking in a not so good shoe, it's going to affect their movement for the rest of the day, and they're not going to get good carryover from their hard work of doing their postural restoration program. We need you guys to help us out. You have that kind of power with what you do with shoes. I provided a copy of this shoe list in with this jump drive. Read it over, look it over. I do want to let you know shoes go on and off this list yearly. We update it every year. But this year is going to probably be the most challenging year that we've ever put a shoe list together to help our patients and to provide our patients prevention, whether they love to walk or run. I would also like you to know that, and the second part of this series is going to be an example that I'm utilizing with the patient. I'm going to keep the video running. I'm going to put her in a shoe. It's going to be the Brooks Adrenaline 24. This shoe has all of the qualities that are in the back of our shoe list that we look for in a shoe. I do want to let you know that there's a lot more qualities that I look for in the good qualities. These are the basic ones. If you want more information, please reach out to me. I would love to partner and work with you to help our patients to have good outcomes and to provide a good quality shoe that helps with prevention. Then I'm going to put this participant in a not so good shoe that does not fit the criteria of the good examples, and it's going to fall more in the example of the bad. It doesn't have all of the bad qualities, it just has some of them. And I'm going to show you the influence that those shoes have with the objective test. These are the same tests that myself, my colleagues, and other healthcare providers throughout the country and internationally do with their patients in order to determine if a shoe works for their patient. And I'm going to show you the influence that has on the neck, the influence that has on the trunk, and the influence it has on the pelvis, which are all imperative in order to move our patients forward. Thank you for the time for listening to this video, and watch for video number 2.